Hello, and welcome back to Anki's Cooking, but is it edible? Today we're going to make a nut butter from hazelnuts. These are toasted, by the way. Now we're going to cover some basic principles of making nut butter. It's something that I've been doing for the past 3 years, and I want to talk to you about how to make it at your home. Now the recipe itself doesn't have the quantities as such. You base it on the amount of quantities you have of the particular nut. Now the principles we're going to cover throughout all the different nuts that you might use. Those include almond or pecan, walnuts as well. Now the basic principle is you take your choice of nuts in the food processor and you grind it for at least 5 up to 7 minutes. This grinding process is extremely important because it starts to extract the oils from the nut, and that's when you get the spread. Now you obviously help it with you support it with one of the best things ever, hazelnut oil. Now this is definitely one of my favorite oils to use. It's very low in glycemic index, so it won't disturb any of if you're keto or otherwise. It's very good for cooking because it doesn't have any flavor to it. I know that some of you might like avocado oil, but avocado oil does have a strong taste. Hazelnut doesn't get that, and it's much better than it. I like it personally better than avocado oil. And you can use it as butter instead of butter in baking, as well as coconut oil. I've done it as a replacement. It works just as fine. The other important factor is to add your sweetener. Now it's important that the sweetener is grind as well along with this, so it doesn't have that grainy texture. So we're going to do that separately as well. The other shot is, this is an optional, it's pure vanilla powder. You can add this, but you don't have to. This is purely optional. I've learned over the years that if I add a little bit of it, it does balance out the flavor. It's not as strong. The other thing that I've learned to use, and at first I used it only with nut, but I discovered that actually adding chocolate, melting the chocolate with cocoa butter, does get that, mellows down some of the hazelnut strong flavor, and it gives it a bit more creamy texture. So hazelnuts themselves do have oils, but with the help of hazelnut oil as well as the cocoa butter, it helps give that spread and creamy texture. You can, however, use a cocoa powder. This is unsweetened organic cocoa powder. It does help if you don't have a very good chocolate, no sugar added chocolate, you can substitute it with this. And if you prefer, you can also use a Dutch process. Now do bear in mind, when you use the Dutch process, it gives a lot darker color of the spread and the flavor. So if you're using the Dutch process, you might want to supplement by using this a little bit more in order to get that sweetness that we want in a spread. Now you can use the spread either as a part of, you can add them to the cookies flavor, you can add them to your pancakes, anywhere really, or just eat on its own or with your bread. So without further ado, let's start. So we're going to first blend our nuts. So we have around 300 grams of nuts here. And what's very important to note is I based it on flavors that I like and how I like them, which I would suggest that you do the same. Now this does require a little bit of experimenting. So you base it on the amount of your nut of choice, and then you add the rest in terms of how much chocolate, vanilla, and oils, depending on how you like it to be. If you want it more grainier, if you want it more creamier, if you want it more chocolatey, so or sweeter, less sweet, depends on your flavors. That's why there isn't a specific how much of each ingredient it includes. It's purely up to you and how you play with it. So this is one of the fun recipes where we get to really have a lot of fun and learn a lot. And it took me 3 years to really perfect this recipe. So what I do first in the beginning is I grind them up a little bit in the food processor and take like a nice little scoop of the grinded nuts to add later on, so it has a bit more grainy, crunchy flavor or crunchy texture that I personally prefer. Now you don't have to do that. So let's give it a bit of just a nice little. All right, So this is sort of what we're looking for to take out a little bit. As you can see here, it's not fully ground, we just started. So I want to take some of these nice little crunchy bits to add at the end for a little extra crunch. And this should do it, not too much, just a nice little touch of it. Something for extra hazelnut flavor. So we're going to grind this now for at least 5 to 7 minutes, as I mentioned, to let the oils, and we're going to go through them to see how the texture changes and how the nut reacts when it's grinded. So let's get going. And I will, as always, set for 5 minutes for now and see where it takes us. All right, now as you can see, this is about 1 minute in. You want to make sure that you always keep an eye on scooping it down to make sure that it all gets covered. And you can see there's a little bit of marks here. That's the oils getting out. So we're on the right track. All right, we're 3 minutes in. And let me show you how it looks like. Now you can see I didn't add anything. This is just the hazelnut. It already has started to release the oils from the nut, and it's more of a creamy texture. This is just raw nuts. So the longer you keep them, the more they release the oils, and the more it becomes a bit more like a spread. So we'll continue doing this for another maybe 3 minutes, and then we'll come back. All right, so this has been going on for 7 minutes. And as you can see, this is pure hazelnut. There's nothing added yet. So it's very liquid. So it released all its oils and it's full spread. Now you can imagine, now see how easy it is to really make your nut butter spreads. What we're going to do now, not make noise, instead, the nut butters. So we're going to add, and I'm grinded the sweetener because it's better if it's grinded than it has granulated, because you don't want to have the crunch as much. So we're going to add a little bit of sugar, or the sweetener in this case, and just a tad bit of hazelnut oil. Now, like I said, I don't have measurements as such. Sometimes I can add up to 2 tablespoons, depending on sometimes it just depends on the humidity of the day. But up to 2 tablespoons maybe. 2 tablespoons is the max I've ever added. But I basically look at how the texture, how it looks, how it feels to me based on the experience. Now the next step into making sure that this is to melt the chocolate, which is melting right now in the microwave, with some nut butter. How does this look like? Just like it looks like in the picture. This is one of the best, and you've seen this in my first video when I made the white chocolate. This is probably one of the best things ever. So it looks very, very cute, like that, like a button. I love these things. Now it does require a bit more to melt than the butter. So do bear that in mind. And we've taken a little bit of this chocolate, precisely that amount, and now we're melting it off to add it. Now, once we add the chocolate, we'll do a taste first to see if it's sweet, does it need more sweetness or not, or does it need more vanilla or not. That depends. So I play with it based on my particular flavor. And that's how you make basically your nut butter. So let's get to the chocolate. Now this has been in a microwave for 1 minute. And as you can see, the chocolate did melt, but the cocoa butter, not so much. So it does take a bit higher temperatures and a longer time to melt. It does melt, it just takes a bit longer than what you would expect from a butter in general, like a regular butter made from cow's milk. So we're gonna mix this a little bit and then add it back pop it back into the microwave to melt a little bit more. All right, so we've got our cacao butter. I was corrected. and the chocolate fully melted. Now, what you can do as well is add, if you want the sweetener, into the chocolate and then into our hazelnut, or even add the vanilla. But we're going to go, and I'll add the vanilla separately. Not too much, because it can get overpowering. Oh, it is a bit hot, so be careful. So we're going to add. Oh, that looks really nice. All right. It doesn't take too long to mix it all up, since it does have that very liquidy state. So what we're going to do is just scrape off the sides to make sure everything is melted. No, sorry, mixed in well together. And we have nice chocolate flavor throughout. So that should do it. This should be the nut butter. Now what we do is the first tasting. 9 out of 10 chances are that your first tasting, you're always going to need to add something to it. So don't get too panicky if you don't get the flavor that you want first add off. So what we're going to do is give the first tasting. I'll try it as well to make sure that it's. Now, what do we need?
Definitely something.
So the first try would be, what will be the?
This hazelnut.
Tastes like hazelnut, but that's what we want. We want to taste like hazelnut. But I think what my husband is trying to say, he needs it to be a bit sweeter. No problem, we're going to add a lot more sweetener to it. Now, since the sweetener is grinded as well, now I forgot the word for it. The grinded sweetener. It's not confectioners, it's the other one.
Icing.
Icing, like an icing sugar, thank you. So, we're going to add the icing sweetener and blend it. Let's see how this one goes. I'll try first, just in case. I think this one's sweeter. Want to give it a shot? Now, do bear in mind, folks, my husband is not a big hazelnut freak. I am, so I really make this for myself, not so much for him. But I'm a big fan of Nutella, so this is. Should we add something more? Maybe vanilla?
It's more vanilla.
More vanilla? More sweetener?
More vanilla.
More vanilla. I love this smell. All right. Third time's the charm. Ready? Better?
You lock that now.
Yeah. Let me try it. Do I have my nut spread? If you're a fan of Nutella like me, you would really love this. This is it. So as you can see, it's quite watery. And the best thing is to keep it for up to about 2 to 3 weeks. It does hold in the fridge though. It doesn't go too solid. it does create a nice little oil. So you can use it. I usually use it on a pancakes and a more breakfast, or sometimes I just put it on a little biscuit or something that I'm having if I have a sweet tooth. It helps a lot. And there you have it, a keto homemade hazelnut spread, aka Nutella.
And what do you do with it once you've made it? Do you keep it in the fridge?
Yes, why? I just said.
How to store it?
I did, I just said it.
Oh, I
You keep it up to about 2 to 3 weeks in the fridge, usually in an airtight container, such as this one, would be probably the best. Now this is a small one, but something like this would hold up to about 3 weeks, but it won't last 3 weeks. I can guarantee you that. All right. So once again, thank you very much for your time and for watching this. Do subscribe, press like if you like this particular recipe or any other recipe that I made so far, and we have actually, and leave a comment.